Hey, Eric here, and today I want to talk about the three legal pitfalls when you're setting up your LLC. So perhaps you're about to set up an LLC or you just did. This video is going to be very helpful for you to make sure that your LLC is rock solid for you and it does what it's supposed to do for you. Now, if you're not familiar, an LLC, what it does is it limits your liability. Basically, it draws a division between your personal and business assets. The reason you set up an LLC is not for taxes, it's not for that. It's because you're trying to limit your liability exposure. Now, I hate words like this that sound like they're a little bit too much, right? Like, what does that actually mean? Basically, what it means is if you were sued, let's say you own a coffee shop and somebody slips and falls and gets hurt in your coffee shop, they sue you. If you have a proper LLC, they can try to come after some of your business assets, but not your personal assets. So that's your personal car, bank, your home even, right? So it's really important that you not only have an LLC, but that it's set up correctly so you don't fall into these three legal pitfalls. So first legal pitfall is, what is the name of your LLC? All right. So what you see on the screen right here, this is an article that was written a while ago, but back in 2002, at least when this article was written, you may or may not be aware of this, but the WWE, what is that? The World Wrestling Entertainment. They used to be called the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, but they were sued by the, let me make sure I get this right, World Wildlife Fund. That's because the World Wildlife Fund was known as the WWF before the WWF. So they sued and they won, and then they had to change their name. So for you, what does this mean? Well, you're probably not starting up a World Wrestling Federation, right? But let's say that you're starting up that coffee shop and then you decide, you know what, my name's Pete. My name's not actually Pete, but for this example it is. And I'm going to name my coffee shop Pete's Coffee. Well, you didn't do your research and you didn't know that there's actually a national coffee brand named Pete's Coffee. And when they find out about what you're doing, they're going to come after you and they're going to sue you and you're going to fall into this legal pitfall. So how do you get around this? Well, one way to do it is you can go to Google and you can start trying to Google things on your own. The easier way to do it is there is a free tool from Inkfile. Now, you're probably familiar with this tool. They've set up over 800,000 businesses, and they're always the tool and service that I recommend for setting up an LLC. But if you're even before getting to that point of setting up an LLC, you can put in your requested business name here and then your state that it's in. And then what they'll do is they're going to actually physically go and do the research for you and then let you know if that name is going to work or not based on your state and your category that you're in. So really simple tool, easy to use. Link is in the description below. I will let you know it is an affiliate link. So if you end up like setting up an LLC with them, I may be compensated for it. But the cool thing is it still starts at $0 plus state fee to set up an LLC with Inkfile. Now, as far as setting up your LLC, it can be a little bit daunting, like, what do I make the name? Because you're like, oh, geez, like, this is a big decision, right? It's not actually as big of a decision as you think. And the reason for that is that you can have an LLC up here, and that is going to be like kind of like your holding company. And then beneath it, you can have a fictitious business name or a DBA, doing business as. So the cool thing is like, you could almost make it like, I come up with like, I shouldn't tell you this, but like you come up with like crappy passwords or something. You're like, oh, what was my first cat's name? It was Mittens. All right. I'm going to name my LLC Mittens 123, right? So nobody will actually see that if you set up a DBA underneath the LLC. So that is something that is afforded to you down the line. If you're like, don't put so much pressure on yourself coming up with the perfect LLC name, because you can always set up a DBA later on. Now I'm going to show you really quick actually how you can set up a DBA inside of your Inkfile dashboard. Once you actually log in, if you go to company changes and then assumed business name, they will help you set up your fictitious business name or assumed business name. So I'm going to just select this here so we can actually see what the price is going to be. But it depends on your state. In this particular example, Colorado, the state fee is $20. Inkfile will handle it for you for $99. But you know that it's being done correctly so that you can actually have a business name that is the like brand name, but then the LLC that owns it. So just sharing that, you're probably not going to do that right away, but down the line, if you ever need to you're like, oh gosh, I don't like the name I chose for my LLC, not a big deal. You just come up with an assumed business name, a fictitious business name, a DBA, doing business as. These are all the same thing. So just kind of take some of the pressure off there. Now, another thing I want to talk about as a legal pitfall for your LLC is actually when you're getting set up with your LLC. So I'm going to actually show you the pricing page here on Inkfile, because this is going to kind of inform you of why they include these things in some of their packages. So I'll stick with Colorado for this example. You can see there's 3 packages. There's the one-time fee, or this one's actually $0 plus state fee. But then if you want to get the upgrades, they're available to you. The things that I like about the upgrade are the EIN business tax number and then also the business bank account. Now, the reason that these two are so important, in my opinion, are when you're getting your business set up, the mistake that a lot of people make is they do what's called commingling funds. Now, what that is, and you can probably see where this is going, is let's say you have that coffee shop and you start it with your personal bank account. So you're running money in and out of that personal bank account. Well, that's called commingling funds, and the attorney suing you is going to, do their homework and try to figure out if you've made any mistakes with your LLC, and they're going to say, hey, this person was actually commingling funds inside of a personal bank account for a business. This LLC is not legit. So what they're going to do is a term called piercing the corporate veil. And I hate doing that with my fingers, but I did it anyways. And when that happens, you can see where this is going again. They can actually erase that division between your personal and business assets and come after your personal assets as well. Now, the reason that I bring up EIN business tax number is what that stands for is employer identification number. This is like a code to the IRS similar to a social security number, right? We all have a unique social security number. We'll have a unique employer identification number that the IRS will use to identify your business. Now, if you want to hire employees, if you want to get a loan, if you want to get a mortgage, there's so many different things, including getting a business banking account that you need that EIN for. So a lot of times when you're starting your business, you get things out of sequence and you're like, oh, I'll do that later. I didn't know about that. Or you're hiring your first employee in 6 months. And then you're like, oh, I need an EIN business number. Well, you need it to get that business bank account. So day one, what I would recommend is the middle tier here, at least for Incfile, because you're going to get the EIN business tax number set up. You're going to get your business bank account set up. And that's going to, again, make sure that you don't have cracks in your LLC. And it's going to make it so that you don't fall into legal pitfalls when you get your LLC set up. Okay, so the third thing I want to cover in this video is business licenses and permits. Depending on the state that you're in, and then also the category of business you're in, you may need a permit or a business license. Well, how do you know that? Well, you could do a bunch of Googling and try to figure it out on your own. But if we go back to the Incfile dashboard here, so this is after you set up your LLC, one of the things that you can do is you can actually hire them to do this research for you. So I believe it's over here under legal. So once we're on legal and we scroll down here, you'll see licenses and permits. This is actually handled by a third party called License Logics. And if you read this middle paragraph, it kind of sums it up. It says, to make it easier, our trusted partner will provide you with a comprehensive package of all the licenses, permits, and tax registrations required for your business, as well as the application forms to file with the appropriate licensing authorities. Now, the reason I mention this is, if you're in a certain industry or category, you want to make sure that you have a proper business license permits. Again, making sure you have a legal LLC and it's doing for you what it needs to do. But also, sometimes we have this resistance to starting things because we're worried about what you don't know. Or like, oh my gosh, this is so scary starting a business. Like, what is it that I don't know about? When you use a tool like Incfile, they have so many great partners that are going to make sure that you feel confident in the LLC you're setting up and the business that you're starting. So in this particular case, yes, everything's an upsell, right? It is $99. But if it's something so simple like that that's stopping you from starting your business and being able to control your destiny and your time, your finances, everything, you have to be able to invest to make sure that you have that peace of mind so that you can move forward. My number one piece of advice as a business owner is that you need to take action, one step after the other. My favorite quote when it comes to business surprisingly comes from Martin Luther King Jr. And what it is that you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. So when you take that first step and you keep making steps up the staircase, it doesn't matter if you can see the end of the staircase. It starts to illuminate itself as you keep on taking steps up the staircase. So same thing with business. You just need to take these steps. So in this particular video, those steps would be doing a business name search. If you haven't done that yet, again, link in the description below. And if you do feel confident about the name that you have, you can actually go forward and get set up with your LLC. And again, there's a link in the description below for that as well with Incfile. Now, a really important part of setting up your LLC is like, how do you actually pay yourself once you start making profits? So in this next video right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you pay yourself as an LLC, whether you're just a sole member LLC or you start to have employees, because it will change a little bit depending on those factors. And your business is probably going to grow in the future. So you want to consider that down the line as well. So I'm going to catch you in this next video. And this is really important because you want to make sure that you're paying yourself properly. All right, catch you in the next video.